Okay people, so we've got a lot of crazy shit to get through in this video, so strap yourself in folks. You may have seen the news story about the Titan submersible that went to explore the wreck of the Titanic. Well, if you dig a little deeper, you will realize that the Titan submersible looked exactly like King Solomon's Shamir worm. We will uncover the worm in depth later in this video, but for now, let's talk about the Titan and how it was a ritualistic sacrifice by the Illuminati. So what this was basically was people going down to the Titanic in a submersible, billionaires paying $250,000 for a ticket to go down and cheat death and gawk at the wreckage. There was a wealthy Pakistani businessman and his son on the voyage. 19-year-old Suleiman is the Arabic version of Solomon. Sul-E-Man. You can extract the lima, the L-E-M-A out of the middle there. That's the moon pillar. And the remaining letters spell sun. S-U-N. So you've got the moon and the sun on the Masonic tracing board. The sun and the moon pillars literally in his name.
Y'all get that?
Do y'all get that?
James Cameron, Iron Jim, JC went to the Titanic wreck 33 times.
And no one is allowed down there except him. And he's gone, what, like 33 times? 33.
And after watching some interviews with him, he said he knew about the implosion on Monday. He also said that many experts knew that the search and rescue was pointless. So for days we're all in a fuss about nothing, basically. Misdirection is the key of the magician. Avatar 2, The Way of the Water, directed by James Cameron, an insanely successful film, which by the way I have not met a single person who has mentioned how great it is or will admit they actually sat through it. Encouraging people to go back into the water. After the first Avatar, people were getting depressed because they didn't want to live on Earth anymore. They wanted to live on Pandora. And they were getting all these withdrawals from not being there. There was an Avatar sickness. It's what... And Disney are behind it. They're this massive corporation that are indoctrinating children around the world. Crazy, crazy stuff. And this time around, they're in the ocean, which makes people want to go into the water and play with whales. The Abyss movie from 1989 goes even deeper in similarity, with the main villain dying in the same manner as the people on the Titan sub. James Cameron visited the Titanic wreck on 9/11/2001. 11 times 3 is 33. Jesus Christ died at age 33. John F. Kennedy was assassinated along the 33rd North Parallel, not far from the Masonic Temple, on November the 22nd, or 11/22/1963 in Dealey Plaza. He was shot in the 3 positions where the Masonic Christ, Hiram Abiff, was assassinated by 3 killers. Get this. Employed by King Solomon and King Hiram of Tyre. Supposedly, Solomon wanted a code word that will invoke a magical evocation so powerful that it will keep the darkness of Freemasonry and the occult in power forever. It was a 3-coded spell that had such dark power that when they uttered it correctly, it would supposedly spell doom for humanity. The Wreck of the Titan, a novel written by Morgan Robinson, first published in 1898. It's a story literally identical to the Titanic disaster. It features a fictional British ocean liner named Titan, that sinks in the North Atlantic Ocean after hitting an iceberg. The Simpsons, a show that has long outstayed its welcome, predicted the tragedy 17 years ago in an episode nobody saw. This goes quite hand in hand with the Titanic being quite literally linked to the creature of Jekyll Island and the formation of the financial reserve. So it all comes full circle in my opinion. 5 victims were lost in the sub, corresponding to the 5 points of the satanic pentagram.
And I can talk in this accent as well.
There were 5 victims in the Manson family slayings. Jack the Ripper ritualistically killed 5 prostitutes. The Zodiac Killer killed 5 people. Ritualistic killings to appease the gods. Get this, the implosion occurred right on the summer solstice. The stepson of a billionaire on the Titan submersible went to a Blink-182 concert instead of mourning for his good-for-nothing selfish stepdad. He went to the concert and said, "This is what the family would have wanted."
The crystals.
Blink-182, another big connection there. Big connection to the UFOs. UFO Day is July 2nd, which leaves 182 days left until the end of the year. They also make music that is so shit that you'd rather suffocate in a sardine can at the bottom of the ocean than ever listen to another second of their god-awful music. The vessel had 96 hours of oxygen left. Well, that's the 69, the 96 on top of the Royal Ark for the summer solstice. The alchemical ritual. Homunculus, anyone? The Judaic Shamir worm. The Mongolian death worm. They're all connected. The Shamir worm could eat through anything except lead. Superman had the same problem. Is this the Ubermensch worm? One of its uses was to carve symbols into gemstones so they could become imbued with mystical properties. The worm could cut through things with its mind, and it could even bleed on things to cut through them. The story goes in the Talmud that King Solomon wanted to build the first temple in Jerusalem, with the problem being that the stones couldn't be cut with a weapon of war. The king had heard of the Shamir worm through the legend of Moses, who used the worm, apparently, to engrave stones that went into a high priest's breastplate. Whatever that means. It was basically a worm that was a power tool that could cut through anything except lead. And when it wasn't being used, it had to be stored in cotton, wrapped in cotton, and encased in a lead box. So, how did King Solomon get the worm? He rounded up a group of warriors to go on a perilous journey of recovering the worm. They first came across the demon Asmodeus, but he no longer had the Shamir worm. It had instead gone to the Prince of the Seas. So they went to the Prince of Seas, but he in turn had given it to the Rock Splitter, which translated to a kind of bird who was otherwise known as the Woodcock. So one of Solomon's warriors went and hid under the bird's nest, which was covered in a protective glass. He smashed the glass with his giant erect penis and stole the Shamir for King Solomon. The bird later returned, and out of utter dismay, went and hung itself. King Solomon's first temple was a massive success. The story ends when King Solomon's jinn, or slaves, were building his second temple. The jinn were the slaves of King Solomon, and he would stand observing their work. Every day, every night, he stood there, leaning on his staff, watching them all like a hawk's penis. And they one day witnessed Solomon, the old prick, fall off his staff. Upon closer inspection, the staff had been chewed through by termites, and the slaves realized they had been working for free this entire time. And all of this successfully deterred attention away from Hunter Biden's
The little mischievous cunt.
What must be what?
Beak.